Konno was riding her bike downhill. She nearly crashed into a mother and her child on the road. Suddenly, she realized the brakes weren't working. Panicking, she couldn't believe what was happening in front of her. She desperately tried to stop by using her feet, but the bike kept charging straight toward the railroad tracks. In the end, the bike couldn't stop. It slammed directly into the guardrail. Konno's whole body was thrown into the air. At that moment, a train came rushing forward. It headed straight toward her, but strangely enough, Konno was completely unharmed. When she opened her eyes again, she realized she had only bumped into that mother and child from earlier. She quickly apologized. Then, when she turned her head, she found the time had gone back 2.5 minutes. The train once again passed through the crossing. When she got home, the more she thought about it, the more puzzled she became. After figuring things out, she decided to test it again, but this time, aside from a pounding headache from the crash, nothing else happened. Time didn't rewind either. Konno's younger sister, Miyuki, came upstairs and opened the door. She found her sister trying to climb out the window. She hurriedly pulled Konno back down. Then she apologized for eating her pudding. Konno couldn't make sense of it at all, so she decided to go out for a walk. Staring at the riverbank in front of her, Konno suddenly realized something, so she ran forward at full speed and leapt straight into the river. But in the next moment, Konno suddenly found herself back inside her house. She opened the fridge and saw the pudding Miyuki had eaten earlier sitting inside. Just then, her family came home. When she heard Miyuki say she wanted the pudding, Konno immediately shouted to stop her. By the time her family looked over, Konno had already disappeared. She suddenly found herself back at the riverbank again. Konno heard a child behind her say that she had just vanished. That's when she finally realized the truth. She really could leap through time. But before that day, she had only been an ordinary high school girl. On the morning of the day she first traveled through time, Konno had still been oversleeping like usual. She rushed into class at the last second to take a pop quiz, even though she recognized every single word. Once they were strung together, she couldn't understand them. In the end, she only scored a 9. During cooking class, her clumsiness accidentally caused a fire. The whole class laughed and called her a dummy. During club activities, she got knocked over by a classmate who came running out of nowhere. Later, when she went to the lab to hand in her assignment, she noticed a glowing walnut on the floor. Just as she reached out to pick it up, a sudden noise sounded behind her. Startled, she fell to the ground. Her elbow landed right on the walnut. In that instant, Konno felt like she had been thrown into a time tunnel. Her body kept plummeting downward. Strange images flashed one after another before her eyes. In just a few seconds, it felt like she had traveled through centuries. When she finally came to, she realized she was still in the lab. Dazed, she thought everything just now had been an illusion. On the way to play baseball, she told her 2 friends about the experience, but they only laughed at her mercilessly. The day after she successfully leapt through time at the riverbank, Konno was overjoyed on her way to school. Anything she hadn't done well before, she could just leap back and redo. She finished the quiz first this time, and even scored a perfect 100. During cooking class, she got another student to handle the work for her, but she didn't expect that student to be just as clumsy. Not only did it still start a fire, but they sprayed the entire classroom with a fire extinguisher. During club activities, Konno bent backward in advance, just in time to dodge the classmate rushing toward her. This time, she even got praised by everyone. When Konno went to sing at karaoke and didn't feel satisfied, she started leaping back over and over in the booth. By paying only once, she could eat and drink as much as she wanted. With this newfound ability, Konno spent her days living in comfort. She never even considered there might be side effects. She just kept carelessly hopping back through time for trivial things, until her aunt reminded her, while you're enjoying the benefits of leaping through time, someone else might be getting hurt because of it. But Konno didn't take it seriously, because even if someone got hurt, she could always leap back and change the result. Back then, she had no idea that the number of leaps was limited, and one day, they would eventually run out. Konno's peaceful and carefree life was suddenly shattered that day. After school, the 3 of them agreed to go play baseball. On the way, 3 younger girls came running up. One of them, named Keiho, confessed her feelings to Suda, but Suda said he already liked someone else. When this reached Chiaki's ears, he misunderstood and thought Suda was talking about Konno. At dusk, the 3 of them reached the fork in the road where they usually parted ways. Chiaki volunteered to walk Konno home. The setting sun cast dappled light and shadow. The surface of the water shimmered with golden light, accompanied by the evening breeze. Chiaki confessed his feelings to Konno, but his words left Konno completely at a loss. She didn't know how to face Chiaki, so she instinctively leapt back in time to the fork in the road. Looking at the back seat of Chiaki's bike, she hesitated for a moment but still got on. She wanted to change the subject before Chiaki confessed, but every time, Chiaki still spoke up first. Konno tried using her ability to leap several times but failed. In the end, she gave up and went home alone. From that day on, Konno started acting a little strange. She began to deliberately avoid Chiaki, whether in the classroom or in the hallway. As soon as she saw him, she would go the other way. She couldn't understand it, even though she could always leap back. The guilty feeling she had when facing Chiaki just wouldn't go away. As Konno kept avoiding him, her good friend Yuri grew closer and closer to Chiaki. One day, Yuri accidentally got hurt when Chiaki came to visit her in the infirmary. He completely ignored Konno, who was also there. This left Konno with a sour feeling in her heart. During a baseball game, she found out Chiaki was planning to start dating Yuri. The news caught her completely off guard. She couldn't understand it. What did Chiaki really mean? Just a few days ago, he said he liked her, but now he could so easily be with another girl. When Konno was taking a shower, she noticed a strange mark on her arm. No matter how hard she rubbed, it wouldn't come off. And also, Keiho, the girl who had confessed to Suda earlier, was now focused on her. Because Konno, Chiaki, and Suda had always been together, and now that Chiaki had stepped away, only Konno and Suda remained. That made the three younger girls mistake them for a couple. To clear up the misunderstanding, Konno decided to leap back in time and match Suda with Keiho, so she leapt to the day Keiho first confessed to Suda and stepped forward to praise Keiho's good qualities, but she forgot that at this point, Keiho didn't even know her. As a result, Suda took the chance to slip away, and Keiho mistook Konno for some kind of weirdo. Seeing she had messed everything up, Konno leapt back again, but this time she went back a little too early. Keiho hadn't even confessed yet, and Konno accidentally blurted it out first. Keiho's face instantly turned bright red. She ran away shyly, with no other choice. Konno decided to leap back to an even earlier time. This time, she went all the way back to the day of the pop quiz. When club activities finally rolled around, Konno hurriedly told the classmate under the tree to leave. She told Keiho to wait there instead. Then she dragged Suda to the designated spot and shoved him right toward Keiho. Just like that, the two of them met by accident. In the process, Keiho sprained her ankle. Suda had no choice but to carry her to the infirmary. Watching the two of them walk away, Konno felt full of accomplishment, but just as she was feeling proud, she suddenly noticed the numbers on her arm had changed. Konno leaned in for a closer look, and a wave of terror surged through her. To figure out what the numbers meant, Konno rushed to the lab where it all began, but just as she arrived, she got a text from Suda. Keiho had confessed to him again on the way. Before she could even feel relieved, another text froze her in place. Suda was riding her bike, taking Keiho to the hospital for her ankle. Konno suddenly realized, to get to the hospital, they had to cross the railroad tracks, and at this moment, the gate controller there was broken. Fear completely consumed her. Cold sweat poured down her face. Konno bolted out the door, frantically searching the campus for Suda, but classmates told her the two of them had already left. Meanwhile, Suda called his father, asking if their family clinic could treat a sprained ankle. That was why Konno's calls kept getting a busy signal. Panicked, Konno decided to take a shortcut and intercept them. Along the way, she thought about leaping back, but she worried it might all just be a false alarm, and she'd waste the chance to bring Suda and Keiho together. So Konno sprinted all the way to the railroad crossing. When she saw the train had already passed safely, she finally let out a sigh of relief and started walking back. On the way, Konno called Chiaki and told him she had successfully matched Suda and Keiho together, but Chiaki half-jokingly asked her, "Do you have the ability to leap through time?" That one sentence made Konno break out in a cold sweat. Her nerves were just as tense as when she first heard Chiaki confess. Uncontrollably, she leapt back to the moment before answering the call. This time, before Chiaki could even ask, she quickly cut him off. As she puzzled over it, she suddenly remembered the numbers on her arm, and at this moment, the number had already turned to 0. That's when she finally understood. The number represented how many leaps she had left. Just as Konno was relieved that Suda and Keiho were safe, Suda suddenly passed right by her. It turned out his phone call earlier had delayed him, so he arrived at the railroad crossing later than expected. Konno instantly panicked. She spun around and shouted for Suda to stop, no matter how much she screamed. Suda's bike, with Keiho riding on the back, was already speeding downhill. The clock was about to strike 4. The train would arrive right on time. Suda's bike lost control. One of his shoes flew off and tripped Konno. She tumbled helplessly down the slope. As the bell tolled 4 o'clock, Suda and Keiho burst straight through the railroad gate. The tragedy was about to happen. Konno could only scream in despair, but in the very next second, time suddenly stopped. Everything around her froze still, but it wasn't Konno who stopped it. It was Chiaki. The truth was that Chiaki came from the future. In his time, humanity had already invented machines that could travel freely through time, and that walnut was actually a miniaturized time-leaping device. Chiaki had come back to the past, just to see a certain painting in an art museum, because in the future, that painting no longer existed. But along the way, he accidentally lost the device, and Konno happened to pick it up by chance. That was how she gained the ability to leap. By the time Chiaki finally found the device again, its energy had already been used up. The time freeze just now was the last leap he could ever make. Afterward, the two of them walked to a crowded intersection. Chiaki told Konno, because he had violated the rules of time travel in the future, he now had to return immediately, and he could never come back again. But more than his own departure, what he regretted most was breaking the promises he had made with Konno, that they couldn't play baseball together anymore, that they couldn't go sing karaoke again. When he finished speaking, Chiaki waved his hand, and his figure slowly faded into the crowd. Konno stood frozen in place. Tears streamed helplessly down her face. In the next instant, the frozen people around her began to move again. Time started flowing once more. Konno rushed forward in pursuit, but at the end of the street, Chiaki was already gone. Back in the classroom, rumors swirled about why Chiaki had suddenly dropped out of school. Konno could only sit in silence, staring at his empty desk. It was only then that she finally realized she had liked him all along. She also understood why seeing Chiaki with Yuri had hurt her so much, but by the time she realized it, it was already too late. At that moment, she missed Chiaki desperately. She climbed to the rooftop of the school building. She wanted to leap back in time, but she had already used up all her leaps. There were no chances left. She could only collapse to her knees on the rooftop, crying her heart out in despair. In that moment, she deeply regretted wasting her leaps on trivial things. When she returned home, Konno was still drowning in sorrow. Suddenly, a ladybug crawled into her sleeve. She instinctively glanced at her arm, and saw that the number, once at 0, had turned into 1. Konno suddenly realized, when Chiaki froze time and rewound it, he had secretly returned 1 leap back to her. She thought, if she could use this chance wisely, maybe she could keep Chiaki from leaving for good. So she immediately ran out the door, and leapt once more. She plunged into the time tunnel again. Memories of playing baseball, singing karaoke, and laughing with her 2 friends flashed across her vision. That friendship slowly soothed her fear, and lit up her confusion. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in the lab, and found the now depleted time device. When she saw Yuri, she honestly confessed her feelings for Chiaki. When she saw Suda, she directly urged him to invite Keiho to play baseball with them. Then she ran straight toward the place Chiaki always went. Konno didn't care about the stares of strangers. She let the sweat soak her clothes. She refused to stop. No matter what, she ran with everything she had, just to see Chiaki sooner. Finally, she saw him again. Afterward, the two of them went to the riverbank. They watched the calm water, and reminisced about all the happy times they had shared. When it came time to say goodbye, Chiaki spoke up with a few everyday reminders, but he never said the words Konno longed to hear. His confession. Konno felt a little disappointed, but she still urged Chiaki to hurry back to the future, because she knew this was already the best ending. Yet as she watched him walk away, she couldn't help but cry. But then, Chiaki suddenly turned around and ran back. He looked straight at Konno, and said seriously, "I'll be waiting for you in the future." Konno's adventure through time finally came to an end with that promise. "I'll be waiting for you in the future." She once thought time travel could erase all regrets, but through each leap, she came to understand, life is not a test you can keep rewriting. Those clumsy mistakes, those panicked heartbeats, those sudden goodbyes, are all lessons we must go through. Chiaki's departure, and his words "I'll be waiting for you in the future," reminded her of one truth: there is no going back in life, only by carrying our experiences and courage. and living each moment earnestly, can we make sure our future selves will never regret the effort we give today?